Scorpio, the moment your eyes landed on this title, something in you stirred, didn't it? A strange mix of curiosity and recognition rose in your chest, as if a part of you had been waiting for this exact message without knowing why. It's not by accident that you're here. It's not random that you, with your particular past, your scars, your secrets, are listening to these words right now. Somewhere deep inside, beyond logic, beyond doubt, your soul is already aware that a presence is moving toward you. A man, a force in human form, whose arrival will flip a hidden switch in your life. When this man shows up, nothing in your life will be the same. Not because he fixes you or saves you, but because his presence will activate a version of you that you have kept buried under years of survival, habit, and self-control. He already knows you, Scorpio. Not because he's been watching your social media or studying your patterns, but because energetically, he has walked the same corridors of the soul that you've walked. He knows what it is to lie awake at night replaying conversations, to feel misunderstood even in a room full of people, to carry a power so intense that it scares even you sometimes. He knows the feeling of wanting to disappear and dominate at the same time, to be seen and to remain unreadable, to crave love but fear that if anyone truly saw everything inside you, they would run. He recognizes the way you armor up with silence, sarcasm, or emotional distance, not because you're cold, but because your warmth once burned you. This man, whether he appears as a mentor, a stranger, a teacher, a spiritual guide, a rival, or even a mirror of your higher self, comes into your life with one purpose: to wake you up from the version of your life you've been tolerating. You may already feel it. A sense of waiting without knowing what you're waiting for. A strange pressure building under the surface of your everyday routine, like the quiet tremor that comes before an earthquake. You go through your days, doing what needs to be done, and yet there's this subtle awareness that something is off, not wrong, but incomplete. Conversations feel shallow. Old dreams no longer excite you. Things that used to entertain you now feel like placeholders. It's as if your soul is tapping gently on the inside of your ribs, whispering, "This isn't all. There's more. You're more." That's not anxiety. That's your inner self sensing that an encounter is drawing near, an encounter that will strip away your excuses for staying small. When this man shows up, you won't recognize him by his face or his status. You won't know him by how he dresses or how he introduces himself. The recognition won't be logical, it will be visceral. You might meet him in a professional setting, a casual gathering, an online space, or a completely mundane moment, on a bus, in a hallway, at a cafe, in a comment thread, in a late-night call. But as soon as he speaks to you in a way that cuts through your usual defenses, you'll feel a jolt in your body. Your spine might tingle, your chest might tighten. Your instinct will go on high alert, not because you're in danger, but because your spirit is saying, "Pay attention. This matters." He is not here to flatter you. He won't be mesmerized by the persona you've carefully built. He won't be fooled by your "I'm fine" mask, your controlled responses, or your habit of sitting in the back of your own life observing more than participating. He'll see straight through it, as if he's reading a book he's already read before. He'll see your brilliance, yes, but he'll also see where you've dimmed it. He'll see your strength, but he'll also see the ways you sabotage yourself quietly. He'll sense the love in you that you've redirected into projects, responsibilities, and distractions because it felt safer than giving it to a human being again. And he won't be impressed by how much you can endure. He'll be far more interested in how much you're willing to become. For Scorpio women, this presence might arrive in the form of a man who refuses to be intimidated by your depth. He won't recoil when you speak your mind. He won't shame you for being passionate, intense, or emotionally complex. Instead, he'll ask harder questions. He'll call out your tendency to settle for crumbs while pretending you're not hungry. He'll challenge you when you hide behind your trauma as a permanent identity. He'll refuse to let you keep playing small just because small feels safe. For Scorpio men, This energy might appear as another man who doesn't compete with you in the usual way, but instead reflects a standard of power, emotional honesty, and integrity that forces you to confront your own. He might be older, younger, or seemingly ordinary, but something about his presence will make you rethink what it means to be strong, honorable, and truly alive. No matter what form he takes, the core is the same. He is a catalyst, not a savior, not a soulmate fantasy, not a villain, but a trigger for awakening. His presence will highlight every area where you've been lying to yourself, where you've said, "I don't care," when you do, where you've said, "This is enough," when it isn't, where you've said, "I'm over it," while still bleeding inside. No matter what form he takes, the core is the same. He is a catalyst, not a savior, not a soulmate fantasy, not a villain, but a trigger for awakening. His presence will highlight every area where you've been lying to yourself, where you've said, "I don't care," when you do, where you've said, "This is enough," when it isn't, where you've said, "I'm over it," while still bleeding inside. You have spent years perfecting the art of self-control, Scorpio. You know how to endure loneliness. You know how to rebuild after betrayal. You know how to keep functioning even while your heart is bruised. But functioning is not the same as living. This man arrives like a storm that rearranges everything, not because he hates your structures, but because your soul has outgrown them. Before he shows up, you may notice certain patterns intensifying. Old memories might resurface out of nowhere, faces you haven't thought of in years, conversations you wish had gone differently, moments where you didn't stand up for yourself or didn't claim what you really wanted. You might feel called to revisit forgotten interests, spiritual practices, or creative impulses. You might feel drawn toward content about transformation, purpose, shadow work, or awakening. You might even start dreaming of male figures who guide, challenge, or confront you. None of this is random. Your inner world is preparing you for an encounter that will require courage. When you finally meet him, he won't gently tiptoe around your illusions. He won't nod along to your rationalizations. He might look you in the eye and say something that shakes you. You're not living at your full capacity. You're pretending this is enough. It's not. Those words may infuriate you. They may make you feel misunderstood. They may sting like salt on an old wound. But under that sting, you'll feel a frightening sense of relief. Someone finally dared to say out loud what your soul has been whispering all along. That's why you won't be able to forget him after that. His words, his questions, his presence will echo in your mind long after the conversation ends, like a bell that keeps ringing in an empty cathedral. At first you might resist the pull. You might withdraw, analyze, question his motives, search for flaws in his character so you can dismiss his impact on you. Scorpio rarely surrenders easily, especially when it senses the possibility of being deeply changed. You might even try to prove to yourself that he's not that important, that you've had intense encounters before, that no one can really change your life except you. And that's the secret. He isn't here to change your life for you. He's here to provoke the moment where you decide you're done negotiating with your own potential. He's the match. You are the fire. He will not force you to burn, but his presence will make it impossible to keep pretending that you're content as a pile of unlit wood. As this connection unfolds, whether through one powerful encounter or a series of interactions, you'll notice shifts. You'll start losing tolerance for half-hearted commitments, vague relationships, and environments where you can't be fully yourself. You might leave a job, end a stagnant connection, or change your living situation. You might finally say the thing you've been swallowing for years. You might risk starting something you've always felt called to, but never felt ready for. This man's role isn't to tell you what to do, it's to remind you that you already know. He holds up a mirror that refuses to flatter you and refuses to diminish you. He reflects not who you've been, but who you could be if you stopped making decisions from fear. This won't be a comfortable process. Transformation never is. There will be days when you feel raw, exposed, and emotionally volatile. You might grieve the version of yourself that could hide behind numbness. You might miss the simplicity of having lower expectations of life and of yourself. You might feel anger, not just at the world or your past, but at the part of you that agreed to play small for so long. Allow these emotions to move through you. They are not proof that something is wrong. They are proof that something is moving. Scorpio is the sign of death and rebirth. You were never meant to stay in one identity, one story, one shell forever. In the aftermath of this activation, your relationships will change. Some people will fall away, not necessarily because they are bad, but because they were calibrated to an older version of you. The Scorpio who tolerated certain conversations, certain dynamics, certain levels of respect. As you step into a clearer, more unapologetic version of yourself, people who benefit from your confusion or your self-doubt may become uncomfortable. They may accuse you of changing, becoming too much, being too intense, or too distant. Let them talk. Their discomfort is not a sign that you're wrong. It's a sign that your energy is no longer available to be drained by what doesn't honor you. At the same time, you will begin to attract people and experiences that resonate with your new frequency. Those who can meet you in honesty. Those who are not afraid of your shadow or your light. Those who don't demand that you shrink so they can feel big. This man's arrival is not about him becoming the center of your universe. It's about you becoming a gravitational force strong enough to pull in what is truly aligned with your soul. You might be guided towards spiritual practices, creative outlets, or missions of service that feel strangely familiar, as if you are remembering a role you always had but temporarily forgot. Through all of this, one truth will become clear. The most important relationship that changes is the one you have with yourself, the way you talk to yourself when no one is listening, the way you either punish or encourage yourself when you make mistakes, the way you either abandon yourself to keep others comfortable or stand by yourself even when it costs you something. This man, this catalyst, doesn't come to give you a new identity. He comes to peel away everything that isn't truly you. The more you allow that process, the more you will see that the real miracle was never his presence. It was your willingness to meet yourself honestly, for the first time in a long time. And as this story settles into your awareness, let it be what it truly is. Not a rigid prophecy, but a living mirror. These words are not here to trap you in fear or expectation, but to invite you into reflection. Think of this narrative as a symbolic map, a spiritual thought experiment drawn for the Scorpio soul that feels called to transform. Some parts may feel uncannily accurate, others may feel distant or not quite yours. That's how soul stories work. They are offered like constellations in the sky. You are the one who chooses which stars to connect. If something in this message resonates so deeply that it feels like your own inner voice speaking, hold it gently and let it guide you. If something doesn't fit, release it without resistance, like a passing cloud that doesn't belong to your storm or your calm. What is being shared with you here is not a substitute for your own intuition, your personal responsibility, or any professional guidance you may need in your emotional, physical, or spiritual life. It's a whisper, a possibility, a strand of energy woven into the tapestry of your journey. You remain the one who decides what to believe, what to act on, and what to let go. This is your life, your path, your transformation. The man who shows up may be a literal person, a mentor, a partner, or he may be an aspect of your own higher self stepping forward more boldly than ever before. The form matters less than the awakening it brings. Scorpio, when this man shows up, when this catalytic force crosses your path, you will feel the tremor. You will feel the invitation. You will feel the fear and the excitement braided together in your chest. In that moment, remember this. You were not chosen for this encounter because you are weak, but because you are capable of carrying its fire. You were not prepared all these years, just to return to sleep. You were made to transform and to be transformed, to descend into your own depths and rise again and again, as something truer. Nothing in your life will be the same because you will not be the same. And underneath all the uncertainty, all the intensity, all the change, there will be a quiet knowing like a steady flame at the center of your being whispering, "Finally, this is who I really am."